Prepare SoCal among the new initiatives being launched by the American Red Cross here in Los Angeles. And with us now in studio is Jarrett Barrios, the CEO of the American Red Cross for the Los Angeles region. Jarrett, thank you very much for joining us here in studio today on the KNX Business Hour and addressing the business audience today. Tell us about what's happening here at the American Red Cross.
Well, the American Red Cross here in L.A., I've heard some of our emergency professionals here in Los Angeles refer to Los Angeles County as God's amusement park of disasters, that it all happens here. There's earthquakes, there's mudslides, there's forest fires, there's floods. There are all kinds of things that, because the Red Cross is in the business of taking care of people who've been impacted by disaster, that we, together with the first responders, have to be prepared for and to respond to. So what we're engaged in right now is building our capacity. We want to be prepared, in particular, for the big one. And I think since the Northridge earthquake 20 years ago, a lot of folks expect there to be another large quake. At the Red Cross, want to make sure that people are doing more than just anticipating an earthquake, that they're prepared for the earthquake, and that we're prepared to care for folks who are impacted by the earthquake.
Certainly, you supported the global relief effort for the Philippines disaster. Of course, we were also involved in having that telethon in those days, shortly after the tragedy. Tell us about the effort that occurs when a major disaster strikes here.
When there's a major disaster in Los Angeles or in any major city, our first responders kick into gear, but at the same time, the Red Cross begins to kick into gear, doing disaster assessment and helping us understand where does the public need us? Where do we need to stand up shelters? Where do we need to send feeding trucks out for people who are either still in their houses, they can't get out, they can't get to food? Because even though we tell everybody, have 72 hours supply of food and water in your house, there's still going to be people who aren't prepared. So we need to get to those folks as soon as the roads are cleared to help take care of them. So we begin to do that, and as we figure out where people are, transport people to shelters if necessary, work with the first responders, our National Guard, and so forth, as we begin to recover from a major disaster. And in that sense, whether it's a tsunami, a flood, a hurricane in other parts of the country, or an earthquake, it probably looks all the same. But here, because of that fear of the big one, what we're really trying to do is increase our capacity by a factor of 2 or 3 here. Go from being able to shelter 100,000 people to go to shelter 1 million people. Because of the number of people and the amount of damage that we would anticipate, we've started something called Prepare SoCal with our partners at Edison and Wells Fargo, folks who've been helping support financially us getting more shelter equipment, cots, more equipment, but also partnerships with the city, identifying more locations to set up shelters. We now believe we can shelter up to 500,000 people. That's 5 times more than we could 3 years ago. We want to get that up to 1 million. We now believe we can feed up to 4 million people over the course of several days, over the course of a week. We want to get that up, but that's much higher than it was before. We're building our capacity. To be successful, though, we need the public to build its capacity, and that's another part of what we're doing. People have to prepare. They have to be able to stand on their own for the first 72 hours of a disaster, because people are their own first responders in that sense. When 500,000 people are calling 911 at the same time, they're not going to go to everybody's house. The roads aren't even passable in most cases. We need people to be prepared to take care of themselves with food, with water, with medicines, the stuff that they're going to need, they need to have on site to take care of themselves. And that education is what we're also engaged in.
All right, you're speaking to the business audience right now. The initiative is called Prepare SoCal. Tell us how business people can connect with you and get involved and prepare.
Well, there's another side of preparedness. Obviously, we want individuals to make sure their families are cared for, but what are businesses doing to take care of themselves? We have a part of our Prepare SoCal is a program called Ready Rating. ReadyRating.org on the website, or go to redcross.org to learn more, but it's a free, basically a test that you can take for your company and figure out on a scale of 1 to 100, how prepared are you for business continuity? A lot of companies, your individuals are thinking of their families, but companies have to open their doors the next day. A lot of small businesses can't stay in business. They can't afford to close the doors for 2 or 3 weeks. So how is it that you prepare to keep the doors open? Ready Rating is a tool for businesses, a free tool that Red Cross offers to help engage businesses. That's part of our Prepare SoCal program.
All right, I wish we had more time, but tell us how people can connect with you and get more information about that.
You just go to redcross.org or call us at 1-800-RED-CROSS. We're here for you here in Los Angeles, and we look forward to working with you. One last thing, and that is that our work is powered by 2 things. 98% of our work is done by volunteers. If people out there listening want to volunteer with the Red Cross, we are ready to invest in you and train you to become one of us, to help go to these shelters, to help feed folks, to take care of your neighbors. We also rely on the generosity of donors. We don't get big grants from the government, and if folks are inclined to do so, we'd appreciate their support financially as well.
Jarrett Barrios, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Red Cross Los Angeles region, and you certainly have a very impressive background, having led the responses to the Boston Marathon bombings. Wish we had more time to talk about that, but certainly wish you all the best in your position here, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us here today in the KNX Business Hour.